another installment of the Buddy Book Club. Thanks for checking us out. I'm here with my good buddy Keith to break down some bestsellers. This time around, we're talking about City of Thieves by David Benioff. Yes, that David Benioff. Half of the famed showrunner duo of Game of Thrones. This is his second novel, written in 2008, and his completely fictional story of two young men surviving the siege of Leningrad during World War II. I thought it was true.
Wait, it's completely fictional?
Yeah.
So it wasn't his grandparents?
Not even loosely based on it. Completely fictional. Both his grandparents were born in the United States.
I really wish you didn't tell me that.
I'm just glad we made it through reading it before we found this out, because I really think that affects it.
I was like, the best part of the story is it's true. It's insane.
I mean, I get over that by thinking, you know what? Like, so much crazy shit happened during World War II that I'm sure something like this happened. So to all the listeners out there who haven't read this book yet, I apologize, but I'd say read it. And hopefully if you're listening, that means you have read it and you can follow us along here, because we're not really going to be breaking down the story too much. We're really just going to be having fun talking about a few different categories. If you'd like to reach out to us regarding this book or any of our past or future episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes, so please download and subscribe. Keith, what we have here is 250 pages of historical fiction, specifically a coming-of-age thriller-ish, set in one of the bleakest parts of World War II. Is this up your alley?
Oh, it's right up my alley. This is... I think I told you I had read this. I don't know when, maybe when it came out, or because I can't imagine. I wasn't big into reading in 2008-ish, but some way I read this book, and I remember just like a one or two scenes. I didn't really remember very well, and I remember thinking it was good. But the second reading, this is maybe because some of the books we've read recently, but this got propelled. This is a top book for your boy here.
Out of what we've read, or in general?
I think in general, I think it's going on the list of. I think it's a guy's book. I wouldn't necessarily recommend to a girl. It's in the mind of a guy. It's a 17-year-old guy. But you know what I mean? Like it does a very good job of representing a 17-year-old guy and like what he's thinking, but also somehow wrapped into a war.
I mean, it's a bromance, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's a buddy book.
It's a buddy book club. I like it.
No, but yeah, this is a great read. I think it would be it might be in the top 10 for the kid.
Overall. I mean, it's definitely, if someone hit me up was like, hey, I need like a good beach read. Yeah. And I'd be like, are you into historical fiction, World War II? If you say yes, this is what I'm going for. Totally up my alley as well. I fucking love World War II stuff. I don't know why, I just can't get enough of it. I think I played the original Medal of Honor game on PlayStation like 4 times through. It's just such a great game. So yeah, I'm into this, but this story takes place during the first week of 1942. Usually, we're familiar with the American side of the war, but this explores some of the Russian side. Our main characters, 17-year-old Lev and his cohort Kolya, a young Cossack soldier, are sent on a quest to find a dozen eggs. That's pretty much the story. It's a harrowing journey fraught with cannibals, Nazis, and ever-present hunger, but it's a page turner. That's for sure. If nothing else, it's a page turner. So we like to go through a few different categories. We talk about the characters we liked in this book, stock up and stock down, love, hate. We like to cast a movie if it was ever to be made. Sometimes the books we read, they actually do have a movie out, which puts a nice spin on things. And, go through some quotes that we like throughout the book, or usually one or two. But beforehand, as is tradition here, we like to go through a libation based on what is referenced in the book to get everyone's whistle wet before we break down the further categories. So this book, unlike some of the other books we've read recently, didn't have a lot of booze. I guess when you can't really have bread, then there's not going to be a lot of booze references, but there were a couple. I'm going to get this one out of the way because I know we're definitely not drinking this, and that's wood vodka. Uh, and it is what it sounds like. It's not sold in liquor stores around here, so I won't be drinking it. And it supposedly makes you go blind. But yeah, it's vodka made out of wood, which I guess
Okay,
wood
then.
has enough sugar to turn into alcohol. So why not? Although the idea, I can't imagine the amount of wood you'd have to use to get some like booze out of it that you could just otherwise use for staying warm.
But it has a
But
lot of endless puns. Like, would you drink this? You know what I mean? So trade off might go blind, but puns.
worth it. All right.
Yeah.
What I will be drinking though is referenced throughout the book, and that is schnapps. Obviously of German origin, but it was actually also the first booze I ever really drank. Some peach schnapps.
Oh wow.
Yeah, my sister woke me up. I think I was probably like 14 or 15. She was a few years older, like woke me up and was like, try this. And it was like
Jeez.
peach, it was like peach schnapps and Sprite. It
Incriminating
was
your
fucking
sister
delicious.
on the national, widely listened to podcast. That's
Worldwide,
yeah.
national, we're worldwide.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, that's wow. Stitches
Yeah.
get stitches. No, what's it? Snitches get stitches. Yeah.
Well, she's pretty square in general. So I think this is probably like, maybe her highlight. But yeah, so peach schnapps is what I started with. So I decided to go with that. Mixed it with a little peach polar seltzer and a splash of vodka, and here we are, cover it with
I
ice.
like that a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's actually quite refreshing.
anything muddled in there? A little muddle or no?
No, but you could do like some mint leaves.
The only
I feel
problem
like
is
mint
peaches are
leaves.
not in season right now, right? Like if you got a good legit peach and throw that on there, I think it could be a nice little muddle for the kids.
They are not in season, but
Yeah.
in the summer, maybe we'll bring this
Yeah.
back up. But I've got my peach schnapps drink here. I know you're on the Bush Light vibe. We haven't got them on as sponsors yet, but Bush Light and whatever coffee you're drinking.
Yep.
But let's dive into the categories. Actually, hold on, Keith.
Speaking.
When was the last time you had a shit?
It's a great topic, honestly, because I do talk about that a lot. So
It's been 11 days for me. So when it finally comes, you're invited to my shit party.
we can jump into the favorite characters, and that could just
Well, that was really me bearing the lead for my favorite
Yeah.
character because, I mean, I'm going to start off with who it was, and that's Kolya. I mean,
100%.
he's such a great fucking character. Not only was he willing to drink the aforementioned wood vodka, but he's calm under pressure. I mean, whether it be when he was in jail with Lev or during the whole cannibal interaction, he just laughed in the face of cannibals. I mean, even his reason for being put in jail was great. He was just out hunting for some trim, like respect. And most importantly, he was concerned about other people's bowel movements. I mean, hey, what a guy.
Yeah, that's spot on. I mean, this is a Keith character all day. Complete wild card. He's like he's confident but also insecure. He's a salesman, but he's also super genuine. He's sex crazed, but he's also intimate. He's a fighter. He's a lover. He's everything that you want from a person. He's literally the best character we've read by far in any book, in my opinion. Selfless. He has like so many good characteristics. He's a person that you want at the party, at every party, the type of person that brings the energy, that brings the enthusiasm.
Yeah, he has what we like to call here the Austin Powers factor.
Yeah.
Men want to be him and women want to be be him.
Ding, ding, ding. First quote from Austin Powers. We love. Completely agree. And I also said I really resonate with him because I haven't been able to take a shit for multiple days in many instances. So, just
really, do you want to dig deeper into that for the greater world to hear?
I mean, no, we'll take that off the podcast.
All right. Well, I'm not scared. I grew up like the kid from American Pie. The guy that had to go home to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
That was my vibe. I remember in like middle school, I just like go to the nurse, say I was sick just so I could go home.
Really?
So I could go to the bathroom. Yeah. I was a very stern home pooper.
Yeah.
And we eventually took a trip in my early 20s to Europe. And because of that, my body just froze up. Couldn't go for a few days. Like no matter how much espresso I was pouring down my gullet, it just wasn't doing anything for me. And in those trying times, you realize how important it is to have somebody at your back just being like, hey, man, like we'll figure this out. It's going to be okay. Did you have a bowel movement?
Back in the day at Digitas, I would just search every floor to see find one that's empty. You needed private time. You needed to be with your own thoughts. I can't take a shit with someone sitting next to you. I just can't do it.
Yeah, it's a moment for reflection.
Exactly. I never took a shit in all of elementary, middle, or high school ever. I just, my body knew. It was so like ingrained that once I got home right away, I would need to. I'd be like, oh shit.
See, look what Coley has brought to us.
Yeah.
He's brought this out of us, this intimacy around bathroom habits, which often isn't discussed in our culture. We just, put it to the forefront. Thank you, Kolya. I will say there are some honorable mentions. Lev's kind of a tough sell. He figures it out at the end, but he's a sweet young boy who's like romantic. He has these ideas of what things are and what they should be. And in this like war-strewn world, he still kind of is just like a genuine nice person, even with dead bodies lying around him. So he's up there as well. I mean, there's not a lot of characters in this in general. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention Vika, because she's the ultimate badass. She's young sniper in like this NDVKA. I forgot what
it's like the KGB. That's what
it's basically like pre-KGB, but she's just this like badass sniper. So I mean, we're gonna get into that later, but I have to mention her in the favorite characters storyline because of course.
I mean, this book wouldn't be the book it is if it were in the brain of Koya. It had to be. He's like the straight man, Lev is. So you kind of needed that in order to make his character that much better. So I think that was fine.
Yeah, agreed. So this book, like we said, takes place over pretty much a week, which I like. It's not really jumping around a lot. There's obviously some references to past things that happen, but it's just kind of the story of these guys hunting eggs for a week. And within that, there are a few scenes that jumped out to me. I'd like to know what you liked most throughout reading this book.
Yeah, the only scene that I actually, and I just vaguely remembered it from the first time I read it, and I was like, was that in this book or is it? Because I've read a bunch of World War II books like you, and I was like, I feel like that was in this book. Was the prisoner scene where
when they first go to prison?
No, when they line them up to see who's literate and who's not.
Oh, yeah.
So that was such an amazing scene. It kind of really encapsulates everything about this book, the ups and downs, where one second you're joking around and, hey, things aren't as bad as they seem. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, people are getting lined up and shot. And it's just like this quick turn, like right when you think the enemy isn't maybe that bad, maybe they're human, you find out they're not really. And it's just like, this is war. Like, this is how brutal things are. That really, really stuck with me. I got goosebumps reading that. It was very similar to Game of Thrones, actually, which is David Benioff did, where like one scene, it's a fancy wedding. The next scene, everyone's dying, So it's kind of like that. I really, really liked it. What about you?
Well, just on that subject quickly, that scene is like great. Obviously, I liked every bit of it. It reminded me a lot of, have you seen Band of Brothers, the HBO series?
You've recommended it multiple times. I've gotten like 2 episodes in and then I always kind of get bored of it. But
like they don't even go to Europe until, I mean, in like the ratings, they do like the episode ratings, like the first episode's the worst rated episode, although really? I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's like a setup store, but once they get to Europe, it's fucking insane. And the book by Stephen Ambrose, I mean, is phenomenal. But it's pretty much like scene for scene, like the miniseries. So well done. But there's a scene in there where basically they have these German prisoners and like this lieutenant like offers them all cigarettes, and the German prisoners are like pretty happy and they're all getting their cigarettes. Turns out one of them's from the United States. His dad was a German, so he went back to fight with the Nazis. And then the next thing you know, the lieutenant just shoots them all. It was just like, holy fuck, So like you're talking about like how crazy war is and whatnot, that's what it reminded me of when I read that scene. I think some other great scenes from this book, the situation with the cannibals in the apartment.
Yep.
The whole hunting cabin scene was harrowing for sure.
That was amazing because you're up so many ups and downs. At first, I'm completely with them. I'm like, yeah, these chicks like are betraying everyone. They're whoring themselves out. Then you like immediately turn onto their side and you're like, oh shit, I guess like they couldn't have any choice. Like I thought that was a really good scene of where you could see both sides of things, and like you didn't know whose side you should be on at the end of it. You know what I mean?
And that like everyone's survival is different.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Everyone's trying to survive, and so there's no right or wrongs in war when you're trying to survive.
Right.
Obviously, there are lots of rights and wrongs in war from the Nazi perspective, which I think we'll get into. But just in terms of those people trying, like those girls, just like, oh wow, they're living a lap of luxury. It's like, yeah, we get raped every night.
Right,
so
exactly.
Do you want to do that? And then one of the other ones I liked was the opening scene with Lev's apartment building. I think that was just a good way to set up where we like for a set and setting kind of thing, just like where we are, what the situation's like, breaks down how hungry these people are, what they're eating, the whole idea that, they're kind of patrol for their block and just looking at, what happens in the sky. And then just how shitty the Russian government is when they find a paratrooper and it takes Lev to prison because basically like kind of loots this guy. For me, though, my favorite scene, I think, was the cannibal apartment scene, just because it felt like a horror movie. And I thought it was so well described, and I could almost like see it in my head. And we've talked about this before, like, or at least I have on this pod, where my favorite scenes are those ones that while you're reading it, it's just manifesting itself in your like vision, even though you're not seeing anything. And it was just like black and white, this grungy apartment. And when they said like the human limbs and stuff are on meat hooks in the back, and there's like a bubbling cauldron, like some of this stuff, I don't even know if it was written in the story. It's just become part of how I saw the scene.
You imagined it.
Yeah. That it was awesome. And it like was actually frightening, like the idea that this giant man is going to now cut you up and put you in that pot. It was like, like you just had that, like, get out.
And like, it would have been a horror movie if it wasn't for Kolya's like demeanor makes you like, it brings levity to the situation somehow.
Totally.
Where it's like the most scariest thing of all time. You're like, all right, Kolya's here. We're good. Like, it's fine.
Like if he was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like it wouldn't have been a scary movie.
It would
have
just
been like, wow, what the hell are we doing here? Like, oh, this guy's killing people. Let's get out of here. So I really like that cannibal scene, but I'm with you on yours as well. I thought that was really well done. Let's get into some stock up, stock down, starting with stock up. This is a vague category like we talk about every week, but it manifests itself and it redefines itself in new ways. And how is it going to manifest itself this week? Keith, what do you have for stock up?
I was going to say this one for last, but I'll start off with it since we were just talking about it. The cannibal scene. Cannibalism, stock up. Hear me out.
I'm hearing you.
They're starving, right? And he's like, and there was a brewing pot and a rack of ribs. Did you lick your lips a little bit? Come on, like a rack of ribs.
Little bit.
I know they're human. I know. Cannibalism really hasn't made a comeback in any way. So, but it's a penny stock right now. And, I thought you might want to invest here. A couple other tidbits, because I just saw, not Equalizer. What's the movie with Denzel in it? Book of Eli.
Many.
Anyways, what happens in the movie is there's cannibals in that as well. And they're like, look at their hands. Everyone's looking at people's hands to make sure if they're cannibals or not, which I had to look up, which is real. It's basically called Kruger disease or
Kuru. I was literally about to say this.
Already?
Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, it's basically like mad cow disease, but you get it from eating people. So I guess the question becomes, how much would you have to be paid to eat a piece of human, knowing all the factors?
So I don't know if I should
put
part?
This. And what part of you?
I don't know if I should put this on the air, but I'd be down. I'm down. I'm in. So the caveat would be you'd have to tell me I wasn't getting Kuru or any other sort of disease.
It'd be clean meat.
Yeah, from human stuff. But let's just say, I mean, I love dystopian books, dystopian movies and stuff like that. So if I'm in a situation where I'm starving or I'm on an island, I'm looking at the porter or the cook who survived the crash with me, and I'm licking my chops. Like I'm ready to go. I mean, Stephen King actually wrote a book about this that was kind of interesting. I haven't read it, but the idea is basically a surgeon finds himself on an island and slowly cuts away parts of his body to eat them because he's starving to death. But yeah, fucked up. But yeah, I think I would be down. And to your question of what part I would eat, I'm a dark meat kind of guy. So I think you'd have probably some nice choices in the glutes somewhere. That's what I'm going for. You know, it's the biggest muscle, but there's lots of muscles created in there. I feel like, you know, put that in a stew, maybe it should be delicious. What do you think?
You're the cook. I'm not really sure. I don't know where the filet mignon of the human is, but maybe I'd go for that. Whatever that.
I don't think we have it. It's part of your back, so it'd be like your tenderloin. I don't know if we have. I don't know if we have, or if we do, it's probably minimal.
Yeah, maybe some ribs then. I mean, that's where I'm going. Yeah, and I would say, here's the thing to tie it back to the beginning. If you were to tell me you eat this piece of human meat, and from now on you can RG, aka take a shit whenever you want, at any time you want, you literally have complete control of it for the rest of your life, I would do that in a heartbeat. That's a price that's like there's no amount of money worth that to me.
It's a weird tie-in that you rubbed a lamp and this is what the genie gave you.
I've thought about that before. The value. I've also thought this question for you too. How much salary would you take less to have a private bathroom? I mean, I guess we're work from home now, so it doesn't really matter. But if you were at a big office with a huge public bathroom, how much would you take left to have a private one?
I mean, I have to make a lot more money. I wouldn't take that. I find myself, as you said before, like I'm pretty good at finding a secret bathroom. You know, I've always been good at finding a secret bathroom. So
I have a buddy that would have like 20 stalls lined up in these big offices, and there was no other, like that's it. And there was like 18 people in there. I'm like, oh my God, I would quit. Like I couldn't do that.
The smell alone would be.
I would have to go with noise canceling headphones in. I would have to just not make eye contact with anyone.
Yeah, I've worked in a big corporation for long enough that I think I'm over it now. I think I got through that part of my life, especially also because I saw the CEO of a 5,000 person company like walk into a bathroom and take the most vicious BM, like liquid diarrhea BM.
How do you know?
Then because I was washing my hands when he walked out like he owned the place. Like
good for him.
I would have been head down, shame. Just the shame would have been, you would have been able to not only smell the shit, but also smell my shame. And he walked out, no big deal. Hey, how are you? And I was like, wow, okay, I get it. I got to get over this. I got to aspire to a higher thing. So
I mean, that's what CEOs do apparently. So good for him.
I'm glad you're keeping stock up as ridiculous and nonsensical as it has been in the past. For my first stock up, I'm going with Big Wood. Big stock up to Big Wood or the wood industry as a whole.
Yeah. Go on. I thought you were talking about your bedroom habits, but go on.
No. Not only does this book show the importance of wood for heating purposes, I mean, people were burning their like very expensive pianos just to stay warm. But I mean, they're using wood like Bubba from Forrest Gump would. I mean, wood vodka, wood bread, wood leaves for the horses. Mm-hmm. You can put wood in anything, you know? So for the wood industry, I mean, they should start expanding outside of just lumber and firewood and start looking into, wood-based alcohol. Bread that's 75% wood shavings, you know?
The hipsters would be all over that too. That seems like a no-brainer.
Super sustainable, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
So Big Wood, stock up. I'm buying into the wood industry because if they start doing some, what do they call that? Horizontal business moves. I went to business school.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Horizontal moves into some other industries, then there's a lot of opportunity for growth.
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense.
What else do you have for stock up?
I had twisting your ankle being life or death. So essentially, when they were like running through the forest and the snow, if you twist your ankle, they basically die there. Which, if you've ever twisted your ankle, it's almost like you die. Have you ever done this before on like the basketball court or anywhere? It's the worst thing ever. And I was just like, yes, that spoke to me, even though I'm not in World War II stricken Russia, but it made sense to me.
I don't understand how that's stock up.
I'm just saying the people understanding the severity of a twisted ankle, that's stock up. It's going back up now. We appreciate that.
But when you twisted on the basketball court, like you just iced it and got some like
I
tang.
almost die. I almost die out there. I leave the ankle on the court, kid.
Yeah, little Gordon Hayward vibe.
Yeah.
For stock up for me, I had there's a couple of good pop culture references which have come into pop culture since after this book was released. One being Baba Yaga, which is like the Russian boogeyman. This was referenced after the encounter with the cannibal, but then later used in the John Wick movies. And John Wick was called the Baba Yaga. And they didn't specifically or explicitly say what the Baba Yaga was. So like from watching John Wick, I understood. Another pop culture reference when Lev, who's the Russian, or excuse me, the Nazi bad guy in this, the ultimate bad guy. I forget his name. Obviously, I didn't do my research.
Yeah, I have a tidbit on that next, but I can't think of his name.
But so when they're playing their chess game, he opens up with the Queen's Gambit.
Oh, yes.
Which has now become like the most popular Netflix show of the year or of last year. I don't know which one it was. But either way, once again, they didn't go into it. I would have no idea what the Queen's Gambit was.
Right.
I still don't know what the Queen's Gambit is, but I know it was the title of a Netflix show that I thoroughly enjoyed. So pop culture references, stock up. Yep. Did you have anything else for that section?
The last one was, again, this is a longer one, but falling in love with every girl when you're 17, which Lev kept on doing. That spoke to me. Remember like when like a girl would say hi to you or you'd pass by a girl, you just instantly fall in love with them when you're that age. I mean, I still do it a little bit now, but
yeah, I'm still
you know there. What I mean? Like this book nailed it. They really nailed like a new girl would show up and he's like, oh, I'm going to marry this girl. Like,
yeah, 100%.
Which is true. That's like a true thing that happens. So they really crushed it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm buying that stock anyways. Yeah. I saw Christina Ricci in the movie Casper and also Now and Then, and I was convinced I was going to find her and marry her when I was 10 years old. I was like, there's 100%
saw this
accuracy.
Movie last week, or what was
it? No, I did see some Christina Ricci movies lately, though, but, she's moved on from me, and I've moved on from her. Okay. Another stock up I had, my last one as well, was Russian literature. We don't talk about Russian literature at all in our society, I don't feel like, or at least the circles we hang out in. Granted, they're not erudite circles, but I think probably the only Russian literature I knew previous to this was like War and Peace, which is referenced. Tolstoy, Yushkinova, Gogol, and many more were referenced throughout this book. And it got me thinking that, we should maybe think about adding a Russian classic to our list of future podcasts. They support. My grandfather says they're great. So just saying.
I read Gentleman of Moscow, and there's a lot. It's heavy on that. It's him basically debating people about Russia versus other countries, like Russia versus the U.S. and like the great musicians and the great authors and poets and everything. So it's very, very heavy on that. And Russia definitely kind of doesn't get its fair shake, I guess, in a lot of instances. And this book kind of brings some of that out in the history wise.
Yeah, I mean the arts in general. I think. Yeah. I mean, I just used literature for
ballet
example,
too. There's also really good, right?
There was a ton of other like Russian art that was referenced in the book, and I think we should look more into that. So I'm just saying. Now we get to the other side of the coin. Stock down. What do you got?
Yeah. So Inglourious Bastards, stock down. I think they kind of stole. This is what you were referencing, like the bad guy. The bad guy is basically stolen in Inglourious Bastards from this book. Inglourious Bastards came out in 2009. This was in 2008. And the bad guy in both of these is like fluent in multiple languages, basically can look right through someone and tell if they're lying or not. So like he knows instantly Lev's a Jew. He knows Koya is not illiterate, which is kind of obvious, but he basically like calls everyone on their bullshit instantly, which is kind of an Inglourious Bastards bad guy trait. And then like the tables turn on them at the last instant when they think they're in control of everything, which is kind of what happened in that movie as well. So I thought they were very, very similar when they were like, yeah, he's super smart and he speaks all these languages. I'm like, that sounds familiar. Like,
wow, that's not good considering Quentin Tarantino has been accused of stealing a lot of stuff throughout his cinematic career. Oh, really? Yeah, that's like a big thing with Tarantino. I mean, I'd say it's more of an homage thing than a stealing, or bad artists or something pay homage and like good artists steal from other artists. But yeah, so Quentin Tarantino, sorry, but Keith's giving you a stock down. My stock down is for the Russian government. I mean,
not great.
The Russian government, it looks pretty bad in this, as you know, in the Soviets. Just they did some pretty fucked up shit to their own prisoners and their own people. I mean, Lev almost gets shot because he tried to take a nip of like some dead enemy paratrooper schnapps. Like that was it. He legitimately took a sip of some alcohol and like that, or like was
you've seen
grabbed for
Enemy
his
at the
alcohol.
Gates, right?
Yeah, that's going to be referenced in this podcast as well.
Okay,
Don't you worry.
okay. I mean, yeah. So I kind of already knew that going in. There was they're shitty.
Yeah, I mean, I know this as well, but so the stock is even further down.
Oh, okay.
I mean, his dad getting murdered or sent to Siberia for writing some poems, like, yikes. And then, I mean, at the end of the whole thing, they get told, hey, we need these eggs for this cake. It's a big deal. We'll save your lives, which they really shouldn't have had their lives on the line anyways. We're talking about one guy trying to get some ass and the other one who's just trying to drink some schnapps in order for them to get these very important eggs. And then at the end, Colonel Grechko like has 3 dozen eggs that he flew in for his daughter's wedding anyways.
Yeah.
As these guys just put everything on the line for some eggs. And additionally, people are starving in the streets. So Russia, not treat their people well, stock down. I'm out. I'm selling.
The one thing I wish we could have had in the book was Koya having that conversation with the general, because he would have been so fucking cocky, being like, yo, motherfucker, we risk our lives for these eggs. We're going to the wedding now. I wanted to hear that conversation.
Yeah, that will be touched on later as well. I'm not happy.
My stock down was also Russia, but not the government. The place sounds terrible.
Russia.
It sounds. I know.
It's a war zone. It has good. It's actually being sieged.
They're like, it's getting dark out. We're literally gonna die in an hour. I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like, where are we? Where is this? Antarctica? It just sounds terrible. Let alone the cold, obviously, but like this just seems like there's death at every turn, and that doesn't include the war they're in. It's just like everywhere they go, it's just like I might die here. So, Russia stock down for the kids.
We're talking about a starving people. If you were with Anthony Bourdain on a no reservations trip during the siege of St. Petersburg or Leningrad, I wouldn't want to go there. I would say this was a bad trip. So, but if you went now, I could imagine it would actually be quite nice. So Russian listeners, don't listen to Keeks. I'm buying the stock. All right. He's selling it. I'm buying bull market. That's all I had for stock down really was the Russian government. I'm sorry. I take back what I said.
I have one more, and it's being able to read or being literate. It gets you killed, kid. Audiobooks. We're back, baby. Audiobooks.
So I guess we'll talk about this now. You read the audiobooks. I usually read the books typically.
I appreciate you said read audiobooks. I really appreciate that because I've heard people get uppity with me about listening or reading, rather. I should say. Audiobooks.
I love listening to audiobooks. I am a Audible subscriber. Want Audible to sponsor us here. Yep. I think they're great. I think they're a great way to read. And this book, supposedly, from what I understand, was read by Ron Perlman, aka Hellboy.
Oh, okay. The thing is, if it's a good audio guy or a good author, you don't even think about who's reading it. You're just like, it's good, It's
legitimately a famous actor that's reading you a bedtime story.
Yeah.
So like, well, why wouldn't you like that? People who besmirch audiobooks should be shot like Lev should have been. All right.
I like how I learned that word from the WWE. There was some British guy that was like the bad guy against The Rock. And he's like, are you besmirching me right now? And he's like, besmirching. He's like, doesn't matter if you're besmirching me. And that's how I learned that word. But anyways.
Wow. You can actually learn some things from fake fighting. Besides the WWE, what do you love about this book? Tough segue, but there we are.
Yeah. I thought the pacing was perfect. It was an adventure book. It just flew by, constant ups and downs. There's no lulls. There's no like, we need to force character development. It was just all seemed natural. It was the ultimate buddy adventure. It also does a perfect job of, I think I already mentioned this before, but getting in the heads of like a 17 to 21-year-old, like I think it's literally perfect. Full of piss and vinegar. A lot of the coming of age books have always been like super drama-y and super
angsty. They're like
yeah,
angsty.
exactly. And you're in people's feelings. This is just like it should be that, but it's not, it's in a war zone. It's like I'm hungry, but it's not. It's the opposite of that. It's like, yeah, I could imagine being this person. So yeah, I thought it was amazing. And then the history and everything around it was great. What about you?
I can dig it. I can dig it totally. I think I read this book in 3 or 4 sittings. Like,
Wow.
it was just like I read, we always talk about on this pod how we know it's a good book when you look down at the clock and you think 10 minutes have passed and it's been an hour and you're like, holy smokes, like well, I've just been immersed. So I love that note. Love for me was the way that he showed like human ingenuity in these horrible times. So like people have to get by one way or another. And the thing I'm going to use for that is the library candy, which is basically made from boiled down book bindings, which is glue. And there are collagen, like I think it's kind of like Jello, like they use like horse hooves and stuff like that for bookbinding glue. And so there is protein in it. So technically it works. And they framed it as candy and they were willing to not only pay for it, but they use it as like bartering purposes too later in the book. So, hey, good for you guys. Smart.
And I assume that was real. Like that's one of those things where I felt like, oh wow, I'm learning something and this is like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's probably another thing I loved about this book was he made it feel like this was a true story. It started off with a Princess Bride kind of vibe of him sitting down with his grandfather and telling a story, but that story in itself was made up. But the whole time you're reading it, you felt like, oh, this is really what went on. So whether that be like good research by the author or whether this was just his writing style and the way that he immersed us in what was going on, I believed it all. I mean, I even know, even like the signs when Kolya runs up to those guys and is like, hey, what are you doing? When they were blacking out the street markers and the numbers, it was like, oh, so that when the Nazis come in here, they don't know where they're going. That was definitely something that people did during World War II.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. Those little details just made it all
little
better.
tidbits. Yeah, for sure.
My last one for love was just World War II snipers. I mean, I love any sort of World War II sniper talk. And one of the main characters, Vika, is a sniper, and she's obviously a complete badass. But in general, in World War II, there's not many better than the Russians. I've loved the idea of the, badass Russian sniper since I saw Enemy at the Gates, like we talked about earlier, Vasily Zaitsev, who was a real person, played by Jude Law in the book, or it was a book, and then it turned into a movie. But just the whole thing was super cool. And I think because I saw Enemy at the Gates, I was like even more into Vika. And they also referenced Ludmila Pavlichenko. I think Vika had talked about her or someone else did. And for those that don't know, she was a super badass Russian sniper, credited with 309 confirmed kills. And that includes her only being active through June of 1942. And her story is actually similar to the fake story. I don't think this was actually true for Vasily Zaitsev, where like for her first fight, she didn't even have a weapon. She was like one of the other people that didn't have a weapon and then like had to pick up a weapon off of a downed soldier. So pretty badass. And Vasily Zaitsev, he killed his first 32 Germans with a standard issue rifle, not even a sniper, with no scope. So he's badass too.
Yeah,
Russians
awesome.
in general, super badass. Love that stuff. That was it for me. And we'll get to the other side. What did you hate about it?
Yeah, so I gotta start off with season 7, 8 of Game of Thrones. Absolutely hated. So I mean, a little bit of this was like watching. I don't know if you've seen Knives Out, but like watching Knives Out after Star Wars and being like, I really want to hate this movie, but it's such a good movie because of how bad.
Wait. Why did you hate? Was it the same director?
Yeah, Knives Out in
really?
episode 8. That was the same director as the second of the new generation Star Wars. And after they ruined that, so I was like, God damn it, I really like this movie.
It's like, why couldn't you have done this with Star Wars?
I know, right? Yeah, seriously. No, but in all seriousness, it was a great book. My real hate, I guess, the biggest thing for me, which I thought was a true story, so this kind of changes things. But the biggest reveal being that Vika, his grandmother, is like the complete badass of the family. The book starts out being like, I knew my grandfather stabbed 2 people and all this stuff. And like, oh, what a badass my grandfather is. He's such a hard man. But Vika, his grandmother, is the actual badass, right? She was a fucking insane person.
After I read that part, I mean, I thought it was an awesome reveal at the end, because it's also like not blatantly disclosed. Not like, oh, my grandmother was Vika, you know, she just says she doesn't like to cook, which then you tie back to the beginning when it was perfect ending for the book, like very Hollywood ending, which I loved. But then I was like, wait, what the fuck? Why didn't we get her story? Her story would have been way better than this egg story.
Yeah. I mean, egg story is amazing. But yeah, I thought that was the biggest reveal. Was kind of not. I honestly thought it was a true story, so that changes things, because I'd be like, bro, your grandmother is way more important.
But it also made this like cool idea that he's asking his grandfather for this story.
Yeah, when the real story is.
And it's like, oh wow, this is a crazy story. This is amazing. And then at the end of interviewing his grandfather for 4 days, like his grandfather says this, and then he like looks up at his grandmother, who like, I mean, I'm making this part up, but you know, he looks up at his grandmother, who like kind of gives him a wink and a nod, and it's like, holy fuck, Grandma Babushka is a fucking badass.
Caesar Jose or whatever. What is it from Unusual Suspects? It's like right in front of you the whole time. Kaiser Soze.
Spoiler alert.
I completely butchered that.
My hate for this book was just the Einsatzgruppen. The Einsatzgruppen. Fucking totally despicable characters. You really do. I don't actually hate anything about this book, really. So I just hated this set of characters because they're so hateable. And the fact that it's so true, like the stuff that's going on is so true. I mean, the Einsatzgruppen was a mobile death squad that, I mean, a book that we're definitely not going to read during this podcast, because I think it's a 60-hour audiobook, but it's called The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. And it goes into like stuff that was going on. And these mobile death squads were legitimately trailing behind the general army. And once they overtook a territory, these people would just like round up all the undesirables and kill them, or at least like figure out ways to kill them. It's super fucked up. I mean, in the first 9 months of the war against the Soviet Union, the Einsatzgruppen organized and helped carry out the shooting of over 500,000 people.
Jesus.
Shooting of 500,000 people. In this story, they get into that a little bit, and they talk about who's that woman? Zoya, the other prostitute / captive that was in the hunting cabin. And that story about them fucking sawing off her legs, like, bro, are you kidding me? That just, it creeps up your spine. It's just like, you don't realize how people could be this horrible. It really just got me angry. I hated them. And especially because like the guy is like, you know, the main bad guy is just like this smug asshole. It made it all, you know, thinks he's so intelligent. Oh, I play chess. And it's like, you think if someone's that smart, then you'd realize that what you're doing is so fucked up, but it just makes you so angry. Yeah. So I hated it because it made me feel so angry about it. But what else did you have for hate? Do you have anything else?
No, again, some of them were like, I assumed it was real, because the talking with a grandpa about like your sex thoughts when you were 17, I thought would have been a little bit weird. But if it's not real, then it's just like, yeah, obviously he's trying to get in the head of a 17-year-old. So,
or your grandfather's just gotta be cool. I hope when I'm a grandfather that I'm like, hey, you getting any ass? What's the deal?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
One of the things that I hated, and we've kind of danced around this, was Kolya dying at the end, especially because this is a made up story. Why did Kolya have to die? It didn't add anything to the story. No, I disagree. A guy, or even the way he died, have him die from not being able to shit, then we'd have something to talk about.
I like that it was just so, he had to battle through so many things, and then obviously it's his own guy that shoots him. It wasn't some hero story. It was some like stray bullet type thing that gets you. That's what I think. It's more realistic in that sense, in my opinion.
Fuck that. Forrest Gump survived this. Forrest Gump had a bullet jump up and bite him in the buttocks, and he got ice cream and got to shake hands with Nixon or whoever. It's fucking bullshit. Kolya is an absolute badass, and he gets shot by friendly fire in the ass and dies on the way to the hospital. No.
I thought he was going to step on a landmine.
That would have been better.
I
Very,
thought because
Tropic
Vika
Thunder.
was like, watch out. Like we put a ton of landmines down. I thought for sure. I thought this would have been a great ending too. I thought for sure he was going to go take a shit and finally be able to shit and be like, yes, I did it. And then be like, oh yeah, I'm stepping on a landmine, but whatever. I don't care.
Just shits on a landmine. And
just like keep walking. I'm about to die, but whatever. I can die in peace now type of thing.
Because his bowels have been impacted for so long, the landmine
I thought that was a perfect tie together.
The shit is now heavy enough.
Yeah.
So that would have been something,
Okay.
But just him getting shot in the ass and dying from that is fucked up, It
was tough, but the movies and books I like the best are when they don't have that hero ending and it's not like some great speech or some like act of bravery that led them to being killed, like in The Departed, where they just like open the elevator and he dies. Like those are my favorite things.
I'm with you there. It just I wish it was a little more dramatic, or at least maybe he dies going to, like you said, with the colonel, like, and he argued with the colonel and then they decide to kill him there or something. Potent quotables. Did you have any specific quotes throughout this book / audiobook that you enjoyed?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of actual like deep quotes that were like,
there was a lot of deep quotes that
there's a lot of actually like philosophical things that were said that were like, oh wow, that's actually like pretty good point. One of them was that was pretty philosophical, was, who said she needs to be special? You need warm thighs and a heartbeat, which really spoke to me.
Super philosophical. Wow.
It really spoke to me at a deep level. So I thought that I laughed out loud at that one. So that was a pretty good one. And the reference was Koya talking to Lev about him being a virgin. And he's also the guy that wouldn't shit on you for being a virgin. He was like, bro, like, let's go get it. It's fine. Like, that's why I love Koya also, because he wouldn't rub it into you or kind of make fun of you for it. He's like, bro, let's just get after this.
Yeah. Koya is the kind of guy who you like want to hate at a party because like he was more popular than you, or like people paid attention to him. And then you met him and you're like, fuck, I can't hate this guy. He's just like so legit. He's just like a good guy. Yeah, and I think like what you said was so on point, of just that, like, he wasn't concerned with like his own ego that he had to kind of step on someone else.
Yeah.
He was really just trying to like rise everyone up with him. And by everyone, I really just mean Lev in this story. But he was just like, oh, you have this problem? Like, let's fucking deal with it. Lev's like, stop, you're making fun of me. He's like, no, I'm not. I just want to help.
Yeah, and he was a guy also too. Every time he met someone new, he was giving them food, like ingratiating himself with them. He was just a good dude. Like, he'd be at the party and he'd see you in the corner, like, and be like, "Yo, bro, you need some beers? Here you go. Here's a beer. Like, come over here. We're playing a game. We'll get in this, type of thing." That's like the vibe he gave off, at least in my opinion.
So yeah, he's Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused. Teaser. One of the ones I liked, and it was kind of fit into this narrative of like the Russian elite kind of having everything and the Russian peasantry having nothing. The people in the city kind of thought they were better than the farmhands, which is true of the time with industrialization. And then at the war, when the war outbreaks and the siege is on the city, the people that are outside the city, or the farmers, actually have way more assets in terms of food, which is the most important thing. They have, access to firewood, but also they have food itself, and they smuggle it into the Haymarket to sell it to, the people of the city, who are now willing to do anything just for a morsel of food. And, at one point, presumably rich person, goes up and offers some silverware for some food. And the person's like, no, basically to the price, like, no, I'm not going to take it. And they're like, well, I have all this silverware. And they're like, so eat your silverware.
Yeah.
It was great. It's power to the people and also at the end of the day, the basic needs of humanity, shelter and food, warmth is just so important. And that's really what it came down to in this novel. And I think that kind of one quick line summed it up so well.
That's a great point. And I feel like that happens in a lot of revolutions or wars. I feel like I read some book about the Cambodia overthrow, and the same thing happened, where like people were sick of city people, and then all of a sudden the revolution happens, and people that own farms are the rich people now all of a sudden. The
Cambodia stuff, the Khmer Rouge, between 13 and 30% of the population of Cambodia was killed during that genocide. Yikes. In fucking sane. Did you have any other quotes?
Yeah, so this one was, I couldn't find the actual quote, but the sentiment was basically people that say to be brave should be the guys on the front line, which I 100% agree. So basically, Koyo was talking about how everyone, all the propaganda and everything was like, be brave, like stand up, fight, and all these things. Like those people that are making all that stuff and talking like that never been in the fight, never have like been leading the charge. You know, you respect someone that's been there and done that. And when they order you to do something, you can respect it. And this is everything, like, right? Like every job you take, anything that's ever happened. If someone tells you to do something, you have to expect that they A, know how to do that, and B, have done it themselves. Otherwise, you can't respect them. You know, the Braveheart mentality where he's out in the front lines charging, you can follow that guy, but you can't follow someone that's just sitting back being like, yeah, go in there, die type thing. So
100%. I actually talked about this at work recently and was basically just saying like, you know, you want leaders who have been there and done that. You know, it's like you want them to know that not only like they're asking you to do this because they have done it, which once again, Band of Brothers, Captain Winters, who's the lead, is the epitome of that. You know, even when he's like in the position where he never has to get shot at ever again, he like tries to run into the fight to like help his people, you know, and from all accounts, that seems to be a true story. So I'm like this, but yeah, I love that mentality. And it seemed like that, like, once again, just Benioff does such a good job, like showing what, like, it's a story about two guys, but he kind of shows the overarching and like takes a wide view.
Yeah.
Even though it's done through the dialogue between two people, you know? So I dug it. I like that one as well. Unfortunately, this script hasn't been written. No one has bought the rights to this book to turn it into a movie. Benioff, he said that he'd have a tough time selling it because he thinks about it as like his book. But he said he would also have a tough time saying no to a really good director wanting to do it, a la Peter Weir, who he suggested, which would be very interesting.
What
Peter
is he
Weir's
known for?
He's an Australian director. He did Master and Commander, Dead Poet Society, The Truman Show. So there is no movie right now. There's no movie in the works, so we don't have any cast out there. So it's our job to do it. So Peter Weir needs a casting director. What do you got?
Yeah. So I only casted the two characters, but I gave them two options for both. This would be a little tougher because you basically would have to find, this would be basically like The Wire. You'd have to find dudes that were young enough that were like, you know, hidden gems.
Okay. Well, on this podcast, we're allowed to work with any time frame we want.
Exactly.
So if you wanted to do a young Jude Law, you could do a young Jude Law.
Yeah. And also I would make sure that they do whatever accents they want. I hate when they pretend to do Russian accents when they're not Russian. Get that shit out of here.
Scarlet Witch, fucking get her out of here. Elizabeth Olsen, horrible.
Yeah, just do whatever accent we know they're in Russia. Like what the Enemy of the Gates did was perfect. They start out speaking Russian to show you this is a Russian people, there's a German person, and then they just start talking normally. Like,
so they did that for Hunt of Red October too, which I thought was perfect as well. It's just like everyone's sitting around a table speaking in Russian, and then it slowly turns to English.
Yeah, you don't want to be taken out of the movie. But anyways, for Lev, I went. This one's a rare one, but Matt Saracen from Friday Night Lights, aka Zach Gifford.
Okay.
Yeah. So kind of the shy, like reserved dude. I think he could play that perfectly. He obviously showed that in Friday Night Lights. And then my other one was Logan Lerman, who is, I don't know if you've seen Perks of Being a Wallflower.
I haven't, no.
It's a good one. It's a little dark, but it's a good movie. And he's also, have you seen Fury?
I have, yep.
Yeah, you know, like the timid dude that joins the Fury gang.
Yes.
So him. Yeah, that's the same guy. So basically,
okay.
Yeah,
got you.
He's kind of shown that he can play that role of like timid, but also like could stab someone if you needed.
Yeah, I mean, you could even use his co-star in Perks of Being a Wallflower in Ezra Miller, who plays the Flash in the latest Justice League movies.
Okay, I haven't seen those. And that he's a pretty flamboyant dude, so I'm not sure. I just wouldn't see him as that, but yeah,
I think he has.
He's a good range.
I think he has the look too. He is like a little silly, but the look is really what I'm looking for, and that's why I had Timothy Chalamet for Lev. who's going to be in the new Dune movies, and he's kind of an up and comer. And I think
yeah.
it's kind of the right age. So
that's actually, he'd be perfect for this. That's a good call.
Yeah.
Okay. He can do like everything too. He's like comedy and he's almost too good looking. That's the only problem with him. But
well, his nose is way too small. So we need to get him. We need to get him a big schnoz.
Yeah.
So prosthetic department, get on it.
Yeah.
Who did you have for Kolya?
I had 2 for this as well. I think you already referenced one of them. Matty McConaughey, a young Matty McConaughey.
What?
The thing is, Kolya, this is the most important casting of like all time. You need someone that is instantly likable. And even when he's doing bad things, you like him. Like that's what you need. Matty McConaughey can definitely do that. The other one I thought would be good, who already kind of plays this role at every movie, is a young Robert Downey Jr. I feel like he could be he has that gift of gab, but also is kind of like the cock of the walk type mentality, which I
like that you said gift of gab and cock of the walk within 2 sentences.
I blacked out. What did I say?
I'm in.
All right. That sells you. What about you?
After watching Dunkirk, I thought Harry Styles could play Kolya. And I think you need someone good looking. That's for sure. He has to be charming, and we didn't really get any of that in Dunkirk.
Yeah.
But he did show his acting chops in Dunkirk. So I think he can kind of run the gamut of like what you need Kolya to do, but also be like fall in love with the guy as well.
Yeah.
So for other characters, I had Vika. I wanted to use Rose Leslie, who plays Ygritte in Game of Thrones. I feel like she definitely could play the part. And I mean, we've seen her all buttoned up and covered up and being like a badass with some men in a fighting situation. So like, just chop her hair short and make her look like a dude. She's there. And then for Colonel Grechko, I had cast Liev Schreiber. Big fan of him in general. He's also just like a big menacing guy, or can at least play that. And additionally, he's already done an Eastern European accent in Defiance. He's American. Like I don't.
Oh, okay. I thought he was. I thought he was Russian.
No, he's American.
Okay.
But yeah, he did that Eastern European accent in the movie Defiance, which is a great movie. And I think he could handle the role. So I'm for Liev Schreiber. The most important factor, I mean, we already know your answer, but would you recommend this book, not to our readers, but to everyone?
I'm 100% in. Like I said, favorite book so far. Definitely one I would recommend. Yeah,
I really don't know anyone that wouldn't like this book. I know it's definitely more of a guy's book because it's a bromance. It's, pretty much just the story of 2 guys. But after I read this book, I like texted my mom and I was like, "Hey, you should read this book."
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm already selling it. If Benioff, if you don't have anything else, we'll get these books, sold. Don't worry. I know you got nothing else in the works, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of the book. I'd recommend it to everyone. I will say it's not like a big literature book, but as an really enjoyable read. Yeah. Fuck yeah. Let's do it. It's definitely in the top 3 of stuff we've read for sure. Website, buddybookclub.com. Keith, we've got another book in the works. What are we reading next?
Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, not Matt.
All right.
I think we both already started it. I'll like tune out and like play video games and things like that and listen to interviews with Matthew McConaughey because I just love hearing him talk. So the book is right up my alley. It's very different than what we usually do. This is an actual biography or autobiography.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this on the pod, but yeah, it's an autobiography / self-help book / poem, poem.
A lot of things going on.
There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's definitely audiobook for sure. So like, if you're gonna read this book along with us, he definitely hams it up and acts as he's reading this. Like, it's an act. We'll get that out next week, and until then, y'all enjoy your reading or your listening, whatever you do, but download and subscribe. And Keith, always good to talk to you, brother.
Good talking to you as well. Bye now.